camera.
Don't ask him to jump up and down. How about that?
Oh. You ready?
We are ready.
Okay. Good evening. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission for the Village of Vernon Hills. And we will start with a roll call.
Chairperson Morris.
Here.
Mr. Ballou.
Present.
Ms. Cotton. Here. Mr. Hesner.
Here.
Mr. Heidner.
Here.
Ms. Zhao.
Here.
Mr. Gorod.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Actually, we're all here, which is even more amazing.
How about that?
Okay. First item on this evening's agenda is a public hearing in case number 1205, which is a petition filed seeking approval to amend the special use permit granted for Vernon Hills Town Center PUD by amending the approved signage plans for lots 4, 6, and 7 and to allow wayfinding directional signage along Town Center Road and within the development near the easterlymost entrance off Route 45. Okay, who's going to speak?
Mr. Chairman, maybe I can do a quick introduction while they're walking up. The reason we're doing this here tonight is because, as you recall, we approved a sign package for the entire development, and that included buildings and development monument signs and everything like that. We did not include it. We did not approve this type of signage when the development was originally contemplated, and that's why we're here tonight.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, who's going to speak?
My name's Jeff Salisco. I'm a principal with Antunovich Associates. We're the architects for Vernon Hills Town Center.
Okay, you can speak alone or anyone? Did you bring anyone with you?
By myself, yes.
Okay, since this is a public hearing, we ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this Commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth.
I do.
Okay, the main ground rule is speak from a microphone.
I'm sorry?
Speak from a microphone is the main ground rule.
Okay. We're here to present, and I'll keep this very short, the wayfinding signage that we're proposing for Vernon Hills Town Center. And the reason that this came about was customers for some of the tenants were saying that they're having difficulty finding their location. Perhaps they were coming from somewhere or other. And the development is a little circuitous. So Taxman, in responding to their tenants, had asked us to help them propose and prepare wayfinding signage in the development. And there's one sign that's within the development, and I think the two that are most critical is the one that's off of Route 45 and Town Center Road at the first entrance. The second one is off of Milwaukee Avenue and again into the development. So we have this, we've prepared a wayfinding sign, and we were trying to do something that looked appropriate and looked good, and we think the development has turned out wonderfully, and we wanted to have signs that were commensurate with what we developed there. So we put together the signage, and the size of it has a lot to do with the tenants, the number of tenants that are in the development. So the overall height of the sign is 10 feet tall, and it's about 2.5 feet wide at the very top. And it, you know, the scale and the letters and all that, we looked at that carefully. But what we have done is we've prepared the sign so that there's arrows pointing if you the easiest way is to go this way or that way. And really that's the intent with this. We have 3 of the signs, 2 of them at the Ring Road, at Town Center Road, the one within the development. And really just to help customers find their way into the site and around to the tenant, various tenants easier. It's not really much more to it than that. I wish there was, but there's not.
Any questions?
Yeah, I noticed there's no backlighting on these signs. Is it going to be lit in some way?
The letters will be reflective. The white lettering is reflective, so it'll pick up light from cars. We think it's enough to do that, yeah.
Is this a changeable sign? I mean, do you slide something out and something in if a new tenant's in there?
They're vinyl die-cut letters that can be removed and replaced. And the adhesive is very strong, but there's a reliever that allows it to be pulled off, so they can be changed readily.
But they're durable enough that they won't just fall off after weathering?
Absolutely, yeah. If they're changed by a professional.
The arrows, they seem a little small.
We could probably make them a little bigger than they are.
Yeah, in some way, shape, or form, if there's a way to make those arrows more definitive, easily read from a distance, because as you're coming, for sign C, when you're coming off of Milwaukee,
Sure.
you want to see that sign and that arrow from maybe 30 feet, 40 feet.
Right. That's probably about the distance, right?
You need to see it right away. And on B, it's you know, you're slowing up there. You're coming in at a pretty good clip from Milwaukee.
Right.
But when you're coming in on B, same thing, really. I mean, the difference between an arrow pointing upward and an arrow pointing to the right,
It's a great point. We'll look at a way to define those a little bit better.
yeah, because for the sign to be successful, you'll see the name, because you'll recognize the length of the
Right.
name first, and then the individual name itself second. But you got to know where to go.
We have no problem with that. I think that's a good comment.
Is this a revenue generation for the landlord or the site developer? Or is this strictly everybody's on the sign?
Everybody's
no
on
matter
the
how
sign.
big they are?
Every tenant that's in the development is on the sign.
Following up with what Scott said, are there similar signs that you've either put in or seen elsewhere that you have some idea of whether or not they work? Because a lot of times, even the printing on some of these signs, you come up to them and you can't even see. To Scott's point, you're driving and you can't. It's so small by the time you get there, you're past it.
Right. We did look at other developments that have signs, and they have similar signs, and there's a lot of them actually around. And that's why we have a very, a terrific contrast between the background and then the sign letters. And a bolder font we felt was going to be picked up a little bit better. So
I do
we
think
did look at those things.
The idea of bigger arrows is a good idea, or more distinct arrows in some manner.
Yeah, maybe even colors. you
Yeah,
know,
like red and green or
yeah.
yellow.
That's a good point,
Yeah.
It's just some way to distinguish one direction from the other.
Yeah,
You know, this grouping goes forward, this grouping turns.
exactly. And that's the intent. It's really just that
Right.
way or that way. Yeah.
That's the whole intent for the sign. So sign looks nice. I mean, it's just, and you're in a catch-22.
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to be too big. You see all the,
Right.
you got a lot of names on there.
Right. Well, the height was really defined truly by the number of names. And the development is filled up, so we may have some may change. We know that happens, but there's not necessarily going to be more than there is now. So
Is there a logic to the order? of
it's
who's on the
it's
sign?
really it's in the order of how they I forget how we did that. I think it had to do with just how they the proximity to that tenant.
So it's not alphabetical. Why? Obviously, it's not
So the
alphabetical.
first one's closest.
Yeah, for instance, exactly. So this is the sign that's off from Milwaukee. So it's PNC Real Urban Barbecue, Lincolnshire Dance Company. So it's really it's in
First one's closest, and then it goes from there.
exactly. Yeah.
It appears that when you have different directions, you put all of the one direction on top and then put a line across it. That's a good idea too. I mean, because you're separating.
Well, they're like in one building then another building.
Oh,
That's
all
kind of
right.
how
Okay.
that
All right.
shakes out, right?
Yeah. On your site plan, you have additional development opportunities, specifically the building G, which is
Yes.
over on 45.
Yes.
Assuming that gets built and assuming that it gets filled with people or tenants, the sign's filled, where do they go?
The signs. I'm sorry. You're saying if they for the wayfinding signage?
Right.
It's a good question, actually. Maybe it's a great point. I mean, maybe we end up having to make this a couple spots lower to allow for a couple more spaces.
And then, just by looking, though, it's hard to tell the one kind of schematic where it gives some of the distances. These letters are less than 3 inches tall, right?
They're 2.5 inches, right?
I.e. less than 3. Can you really see them?
Well, the distance is not that terrific. I mean, I think you're 30 feet. I mean, really, when you turn in, you're not that far. And I think there's a point where, we can only make it so big. And most people should be able to find their way in the development without, but we're just trying to help out. They're at the entry points where if a person's saying, okay, where am I going? They're going to see a sign there that's giving them a name. They're like, I think someone had said, I'm here looking for Real Urban Barbecue. Okay, there it is. I think that there's a point where we can only go so far. And it's already a big, fairly big sign. I was surprised as we were laying it out that it had gotten to be that tall. So we really don't want to make it bigger than it is.
Which sort of leads me back to a point I was trying to make in that rather than distance from the pole for your order, why shouldn't you be alphabetical so that somebody could quickly spot it if they're looking for a certain establishment?
That may have been a way of doing it. We just felt that the closest proximity made some sense to where you're at.
And another issue, because I had that same thought, but if a tenant switches out, they're gonna have to switch out the whole sign that way.
There's that, yeah, that, and
true.
and I think that there's
That's why I
something,
asked also if it would slid out in
I
here.
know,
on the signs they had it by building, I think there's some sense to all the tenants in one building being grouped and all the tenants in another building being grouped.
I have a comment on the, building G. Maybe this would satisfy a little bit what you're concerned about, Hal. Is building G gonna have one address, meaning 800 building, 600 building, 500 building, and then the addresses within that building could be components of that 510, 520, 527, whatever? Then you could see on the sign, 800, whatever the street is there. I don't know what that street is.
Town Center Road.
Yeah, 800 Town Center Road. And then they could go to isn't this, the whole thing about this wayfinding thing is to find the building that you're going to?
Well, on these buildings, for instance, we have the addresses on the doors, but they're actually on the building and fairly small. It's not, I don't know that you're seeing that compared
The
to,
retail
But that's a retail building, too.
right, but this may have signage also, this is,
Retail.
may have retail.
it may be multi-tenant, even if it's not, it may be two doctors, two professional offices, too.
I guess my thought made more sense if it was just professional office. If it was just professional office, it would work like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's got retail potential in there,
It does, it has the ability for that,
then you need a name.
right.
I mean, I will tell you, from going there myself, it is confusing, and I kind of know how to get there to find it. So I
Right,
think
yeah.
you're absolutely right that you need something to get there. Clearly, to try it, I think makes a lot of sense. The sign A, which is the one that's kind of in the parking lot, I think certainly will be able to be seen because you'll pull up and your headlights are directly on it.
Right.
To a lesser extent, probably the B sign off of 45
Right.
will be illuminated. Not quite sure if you come off Milwaukee, you're really going to pick up that sign.
Well, that sign is really almost directly underneath a light pole.
Oh, is-
So that's going to get, and it's a high pressure, mercury vapor or HID light. It's a pretty bright light.
Okay, so I mean, I guess my only point is that I think it's very necessary to have some sort of direction because it's hard to find your way if you don't
Right.
really know where you're going. But if it turns out that you don't plan lighting might be something you need to consider.
I think we'd like to see how it goes with it. And there's a point where, again, we're just trying to give people a chance, people that are challenged while they're driving and thinking at the same time. I mean, we all know they're out there. So if it still isn't working, I think we would probably take that step. But we'd like to see how it goes without,
To illuminate the whole thing.
right.
Yeah, okay. Because you're exactly right. When you're driving into a site and there's a beacon, you track to that beacon and you can find what you need to find.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. See if it works.
It'll certainly help. I mean, it can't.
Oh,
not
it definitely help during the day.
Right.
Okay, anybody else?
My other comment relates to sign B2 and C1. Both of those seem to have all the tenants on there. And actually, you've passed the first sign that said how to get to the bottom tenants on each of those signs already. You've already passed one sign that told you to turn and you didn't turn. You're hitting the second sign and you're going to have to go through the entire development to get to those establishments.
Right, well, but at least the person knows that they can turn in and they can find their way to it. That was kind of the second. So that's the back.
It's
The
kind
two of the signs have a front and a
I'm
back.
taking them the long way, though. This is my point. It wasn't so much directional then.
Well, if they miss the first one, the second one will turn them in. Because the one, for instance, on Milwaukee, as you're heading on Town Center Road towards Milwaukee Avenue, that one is telling everyone, turn in. This is how you can get to all the tenants. And that's if you had passed that first one. So if you're, a person really having a hard time, this will at least get you into development instead of going around till Milwaukee and coming back around, which, you can still do that. But if you really aren't familiar with it, you may not know that there's another entrance and you just go by it.
In reality, if you can help 80% of the people, you're accomplishing your goal. I
Right.
mean, it's not like this is Gurney Mills and you don't know where you're going. Worst-case scenario is they drive in it and have to look
I
around.
mean, honestly, Taxman could have told these people, no, we're not doing it. And they're really just trying to help them. I mean, it's just the long and the short of it.
Anybody else?
Did you consider making it both sides of the pole instead and shortening the sign? So making it a two-sided?
It's another way of looking at it. We liked it as kind of looking like a banner type sign. We just thought frankly, it looked better.
I was just curious about that.
And it was an organization method also.
Didn't they do this over at River Tree?
They did something similar to this, yes. And the signs were actually just installed within the last month.
And are there signs long like this rather than what?
No, they are not.
Jerry was-
There are substantially less merchants that are identified on there. They're primarily the larger uses there. And I think there are 4 or 6 uses on it, and it's a rectangular shaped sign. It's not nearly
But
as
it's
architectural.
still a single, one tenant, it's not double tenants?
Correct.
It's sort of like Jerry was saying.
Yeah, it's exactly like this.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
this one is much more architectural in its design.
I'm kind of trying to come up with a positive suggestion on the arrow thing again. And it's not necessarily highlighting the arrows this time, but it's the separation between groups. So for instance, you have the top group, which is taking a left in this case, and the bottom group, which is continuing forward. Okay, but what I'm thinking about is, I know you have a line on there, but if something could be more pronounced that would differentiate the two panels, something, because those things that are closer together, those arrows that go either forward or left, that are like one on top of the other, those are the hard ones to discern.
Sure. Well, maybe we can just spread that a bit more. That may help, you know.
Whatever you guys come up with.
Yep.
It's just, maybe if you could differentiate the two panels
Okay,
in a quick, recognizable way,
sure.
it might improve how people digest that quickly.
Right, that makes sense.
Okay, anybody else? Anything else you want to add?
No, I think these were all great comments, and we appreciate your consideration.
Okay, we have a standing motion to recommend approval, which would be I'm sorry. That's right, this is, excellent point. Before we do that, because this is a public hearing, I've been reminded, if anyone wants to speak on this. Okay, now seeing no great rush to the podium, we can close public comment and do it in the right order, which is to, our motion would be to recommend approval to amend the special use permit granted pursuant to ordinance 2007-31 for the Vernon Hills Town Center PUD to amend the approved signage plans for lots 4, 6, and 7 to allow wayfinding directional signage along Town Center Road and within the development near the easterlymost entrance off of Route 45, subject to the following conditions. 1, compliance with all ordinances and standards of the village, except as otherwise provided herein. 2, general compliance with the proposed directional sign package dated March 12, 2012, prepared by Antunovich Associates and consisting of 6 pages. And general compliance with the setbacks is delineated on pages sign B1 and sign C2, dated April 12, 2012. Need a second?
Second.
Any comments? Okay.
Just one. Just back to the idea of the arrows and maybe in the differentiation between the rights and the straights. You do one big right arrow and put the names either underneath it or next to it, and then one straight arrow, maybe it's on the side and all the names are this way. Just a thought. But I agree, the little arrows will get confusing, and maybe just one big arrow with the names might work to solve it. That's it.
Okay. Need a roll call?
Mr. Baloo,
Yes.
Ms. Cotton,
Yes.
Mr. Hesner,
Yes.
Mr. Heidner,
Yes.
Ms. Zhao,
Yes.
Mr. Gorod.
Yes.
Okay. Passed unanimous. It will be forwarded to the village board on May 1st.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Jeff, you can leave that if you want. Yeah, just put it down.
thank you. Okay, next we have another public hearing, consideration of case 12-04, which is a petition filed by the Village of Vernon Hills to amend the village's comprehensive land use plan in accordance with 65 ILCS 5/11-12-7, being the Illinois Municipal Code and the Open Meetings Act. Introduce this, John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all know, you've spent the last roughly 6 months or so working on the update of this plan, really it's been the first update of the plan since 2003. The proposed draft was put together primarily by the folks at Rolfe Campbell and Associates in working with the staff to present the document that you have before you tonight. In your packet is a memo from myself regarding the amendments to the comp plan, and it basically lays out 9 different items that I'll go through really briefly. As you know, this is a public hearing, so I need to be a little bit more detailed. The maps throughout the plan have been updated to provide more information regarding the community. We spent a lot of time putting together information maps that show various districts and locations of items and land uses throughout the community. 2, the land use maps are updated to reflect what development has occurred to date. This is traditionally what has occurred in the past. 3, a new future land use map was added to the plan itself. This is the first time a map of this sort has been added. What it basically is a land use map that identifies properties in the unincorporated areas. The land use designations that are assigned to them are consistent with the Lake County Framework Plan. The intent of this map is to allow us to dictate in some respects what is our preference for land uses that for unincorporated properties that are adjacent to our boundaries, and allows us in many respects to be able to protect our boundaries against objectionable uses if in fact a zoning or land use change was requested at the county board level. 4, the plan also reflects the possible development of multifamily uses on the Loyola University Cuneo Museum and Gardens property, and provides some general guidelines for the development of that site. Cuneo, as you know, John Cuneo donated that property to Loyola approximately 2 years ago. Loyola has, as a part of its efforts to maintain the property, has designated about 42 acres on the north side of the property for multifamily development, and is working with a developer who will, who may ultimately take control of the property and develop it for rental types of residential units. In anticipation of that, we've worked with you all to put together some design guidelines for that if that ever occurs. Go ahead.
You talk about the Loyola property?
Yeah. You have a question?
If you look at the land use map that you have for it, I don't think it's colored according to what you just said.
Right. You're correct. It is shown as, I believe, institutional.
Looks like it says employment park.
Look at it. Sorry. Where's my map?
Right here. No, this is on this side of the train.
There is a pink section, I believe. Forgive me, because I have problems with shades. So I believe that's that rectangular spot there on the land use map that is shown as an employment center. That is consistent with the annexation agreement and plan for the property. That property is about 10 acres in size and actually is identified for commercial, office, hotel, type of development on that site, and that's why the land use plan shows that as it is. The other portion of this is government or institutional uses, and again, is reflective of Loyola's ownership and, of the property and the ongoing museum use that occurs there. If in fact, the language in the document reflects the possibility of an apartment project going on there, the land use plan was not changed at this point.
Okay.
Because it's uncertain as to whether that'll go forward or not, so. Five, the plan addresses possible mixed-use developments at the northeast corner of Route 60 and Milwaukee Avenue and includes development guidelines. Again, this is the northeast corner of Route 60 and Milwaukee. We've referenced this property over the years as the crown jewel, the last remaining significant piece of commercial property along that corridor. What we did this time, as you know, is added some development guidelines for something that may occur on that property in the future. This was something that had not been in the previous plans. 6, the plan includes discussion on transit-oriented mixed-use development for the properties adjacent to the metro station. Again, an addition to the plan, which has not been there in the past, provides again some guidelines for possible consolidation of the properties along Route 45 and for future redevelopment of those properties adjacent to the train station. 7, the plan discusses potential reuse strategies, including trying to expand nighttime entertainment options to create destinations within the commercial areas. We have a very vibrant commercial area, but we do not have that use that brings people here at night. And the idea is, can we create an 18-hour or 20-hour community instead of the 12-hour community that we're used to? This language, coupled with some of the language that you've seen in the amendments to the zoning ordinance, are trying to address ways of providing more vitality, especially at the nighttime, for types of entertainment options that could be brought to the community. So you'll see some of that actually come to fruition when you see the concept plans for the mall. They were actually presented last night before the village board and include the expansion of the theater, or placement of a theater and new restaurants and those types of things. So we're trying to address that. Number 8, as you know, we added a new section on sustainability that included goals and objectives that were to the plan, and the sustainability thread has been added throughout a number of areas within the plan itself. Again, first time we've ever done this, is something that is needed and is something that what we'd like to build upon as we go forward. The natural extension to this would be adjustments to the building code, looking at future development plans and asking for requiring certain additional elements to be brought into a plan. For instance, for electric vehicles, putting in the infrastructure ahead of time that talks about electric charging stations, you know, more focus on bike and pedestrian traffic, you know, encouraging proper building, or not proper, I'm sorry, alternative building opportunities where you can provide for higher insulations and within structures, for instance, and similar types of goals like that. And then finally, the plan includes updated demographics from the 2010 census. It reflects the current population and also the demographics as we have them to date. Legal notice for this document was published on March 22nd. The plan itself was actually posted on our website on April 3rd. We have not received any comments to date with regards to the document. Hopefully, people have had a chance to take a look at it and read it, or digest it as much as they can. The one comment I would make, and Jeremiah is here tonight. We talked a little bit before the meeting. Is I need to add, or we need to add a couple of references regarding two appendices that we've had in the past of this document. One is the design guidelines for Greg's Landing, and the two is the bicycle and pedestrian path document. And we just need to add those as a part of, just reference them in the document. As you recall, when we did both, we made an addendum to this document, and we just need to add that reference into the text. So we'll find an appropriate location and do that. So. I guess with that, I can answer any questions. I don't know, Jeremiah, if I missed anything, or if there's anything else I need to add.
Are those two documents you just mentioned separate documents, or are they considered part of this?
They're considered part of it. We did not do any updates of those two documents at all. So we focused on the plan document itself.
Just a couple quick things. I'd like to thank you guys for working on this so hard and diligently. John's memo pretty much outlines all the major changes. I'd just like to highlight the items 4, 5, 6, and 7 as items that directly came out of your input into this document and should be lauded for their inclusion and are important to this village's future. You may notice on most of the exhibits there's a little note that there are some format changes coming. You may or may not know that Will Rockwell, the GIS coordinator, had his son right when we were updating this document, so we gave him leave of absence to welcome a junior cartographer. So some minor changes are coming for those, mainly, to make sure the tie matches the shirt and things like that when it comes to a booklet format. The only other significant change, I would say that, and it's not significant because it's mentioned in the text, is on the future land use map, the area around the metro station will probably be designated for mixed use going forward instead of the open space and transportation it is on the map, just to reflect what's in the text already. So nothing more than that. So those are the main items that are outstanding that I know of.
And my final comment is thanks to Jeremiah and Al Maiden for their efforts on putting together this document. They were a big help to me, quite frankly, in getting this done, so thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I have one question.
Go ahead, Scott.
On the landmark map, I remember a comment being made about the Y. And when I'm looking at these, I'm looking at the symbols where it says fire station, high school, library, metro station, police station, primary schools, and then the Y. I'm just wondering why the Y is there, because the rest of those things are more public oriented. More like institutional. in
They're
nature.
governmental funded, owned facilities.
Things like that. Versus the Y. I'm not saying that the Y doesn't necessarily need to be recognized, but I'm just wondering why it made that list.
It's another recreational opportunity that's available in the community. And that's primarily the reason.
It's just when I look at that list, is which one of these is not like the other ones? It's the first one.
So what would you suggest?
Oh, okay, if I'm making a suggestion, I would say that it doesn't necessarily get a symbol. You could write on there, you could list it like, like these other items on here that are more, like Aspen Point, you could list it like, YMCA right on there or something. I'm just wondering why the symbol. Maybe because the symbol was simpler, or I don't know, maybe there was another reason for it.
There's no specific reason other than it is termed the YMCA. And so the Y is a universally
Okay.
accepted symbol for the place.
Okay, all right.
You're
Well,
gonna ask me why again, please.
Okay.
And
The why really is, does it get a symbol versus a descriptive name?
If I had to guess, the reason it's on the map, it was in the GIS database for the village already, and it was when we were making the landmark map, it was turned on. Couple of the minor format changes, we were gonna add points also for the College of Lake County South Campus and the Village Hall also to that list, so they're also on there.
So those would also
Yeah.
belong in that list.
And if we want to change it to maybe just write out YMCA like we did for Target and
Yeah.
things like that, we could also do that.
Right.
So we'll make that note.
Would you have to pull it off the legend then? 'Cause
We'll have to adjust the legend, absolutely. We can reduce the point size of the letters.
I mean, am I,
It's
does
perfectly
this make any
understandable.
sense?
It makes sense to me if it makes
Well,
sense to you.
if you wanted to be consistent, if you have a Y for the YMCA, why don't you have something for Cuneo Museum?
You want to see? You want to
Well,
see?
I'm
or-
not saying whatever,
Big
but
C.
I'm just saying it would be more consistent that way. That's why I think Scott's suggestion of
I'm
writing
sorry.
out YMCA
I'm-
sounds good.
I apologize.
Guys are killing me.
I know.
You know,
You're killing me, Holmes. You're killing me.
No, it's one of those things that if we want to recognize it, that's fine.
Yeah, I understand.
But if we're recognizing it because we think it's like these other spelled out ones, it's not. The other spelled out ones are descriptions of locations, not of businesses. You know, even though it says Target, that's the Target Center that's there with its outlots. You know, Hawthorne Mall, that's what it is. So, I mean, if we're going to put it in, I don't really care, but we shouldn't think that it's like these other landmarks. It's not. I mean, then why isn't Glacier on it? And why isn't Pump It Up on it? And they shouldn't be. So, I mean, we can go either way. I don't really personally have any great preference. But, you know, we should at least be consistent whatever we decide.
Well, again, they're just, as
Yeah.
the map calls, it's a landmark. It's one of the landmarks in the community. Actually, we should probably have Glacier on there as a landmark coming into the community. The VHAC is on there. CLC should be on there, absolutely.
Should.
Yeah, so it's your call. I mean, we can take it off there if you'd like. I would like to add CLC. I think that's a good one, and
Village Hall.
The Village Hall's on
It's
there.
there. That one is there. You're right.
we just don't have a little house with a
Right.
flag on it,
Right.
so.
Which would make sense.
So what is your pleasure?
Well, I guess if you're asking what the pleasure is, I would say that the YMCA Y symbol doesn't belong with all those other, others on that list, and that it could be written out as YMCA,
We could do that.
but on that list, possibly could be College Lake County.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point.
And Village Hall.
Yeah, I think
It's on there.
It's on there.
Is it on?
it's listed.
Don't forget that one.
The Village Hall's, that's a good one to show prominently.
It's not listed in the key, Village Hall.
No.
I'm just wondering, I mean, it is the village comprehensive plan. You might want to put Village Hall on there.
VH.
We can write YMCA in there. We can add Glacier if you'd like, as a landmark.
Yeah, if you're writing things on there, because you're writing,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, we can do that.
Heck, they got concerts going there now.
There you go.
well, what about the, did you just mention, what is, oh gosh. The Arboretum.
It's on there.
It's there.
Oh, there it is, Arbor Theater, right there it is, got it. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely do that. So we'll take care of it.
Question for the land use map.
Okay.
It's a quick question. Based on, I don't even know if it has a page number. It's the colorful one. It's multicolored.
As it should be.
Yeah, indeed.
And I guess my question is based on last night's meeting and the discussion with the, I guess it would be the third try-around for the Kelly's Camp property of what's going to go in there.
Yeah.
And I think their discussion was about
Apartments.
residential apartments, whether rental or, so does that need to change the color there, or?
The board has not directed yet,
Okay.
put the direction on that one yet. They're working on it, but they haven't solidified that direction.
Okay. Does it need like a limbo color?
I don't think we have a limbo color.
Okay. I just something I noticed and
To be determined.
to be determined.
TBD.
Okay. whatever. So, that was it.
I mean, yeah, no.
Anybody else? My only comment is, I think this is, great that the village has decided to undertake this, since it hasn't been done in so long. I know we put this in when we talked a lot about it, and it's more of an understanding than something that goes in the plan, but with the maturation of the village, and as you said, the lack of substantial bare development opportunities anymore, it seems to me that when we read this document, we have to read it with an understanding that we're emphasizing the maintenance of what's here and the enhancement and improvement, not only of what's here, but when someone leaves, what can go there. Because the village has had the great opportunity for its residents that we've not had a local property tax, because we've been able to maintain our retail sales tax base, and that we continue to do that, to be able to maximize that and not, in quotes, give it up as some communities have. And then your last point that you made, John, about the development of the nighttime or longer hours of operation for the sidewalks, I think is something that is probably sorely lacking, so we don't lose it to surrounding communities.
Right.
Excellent points.
Yeah, anybody else first? Okay, since this is a public hearing, does anyone want to speak on the comprehensive plan? All right, well, then at that point, we'll close the public comment. Anything else you want to add?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. We have a standing motion to approve. So our motion would be to recommend approval of Appendix A of the Code of Ordinance to be amended to include the revised comprehensive land use plan as set forth in draft 3, dated April 2012, with the additional inclusion of the design guidelines for Greg's Landing, and it's the bicycle
Right, and it's the bicycle and pedestrian
And-
path plan.
and pedestrian path plan,
Right.
with the additional, in quotes, I'll put modifications to some of the particulars that we discussed tonight in terms of legend and naming, and making it, as we say, all consistent.
For the landmark map.
Right,
Let's not,
the landmark map.
we'll make sure we get that one
Okay,
specifically
Okay.
referenced.
anything else? Do we need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we need a roll call.
Mr. Baloo?
Yes.
Ms. Cotton?
Yes.
Mr. Hesner?
Very nice. Yes.
Mr. Heidner?
Yes.
Ms. Zhao?
Yes.
Mr. Gorod?
Yes.
Thank you. We will forward this on to the village board, potentially at their May 1st meeting, and ask them to consider it and move forward with an ordinance adopting it. So thank you for your work on this, and it really turned out great. So, and thank you to, again,
Thank
Rolf
you.
Campbell's folks. So,
Okay. We have no development reviews, but I guess we have a, heads up for a public hearing to consider the amendments to the zoning code for May 16th, 2012.
correct.
And I assume those are the ones that we talked about a couple of meetings ago?
That is correct.
Weren't some of those you were going back and revising?
Yeah, I have to, and that'll be included in your
Okay.
packet coming
We'll
forward.
see it
So,
then.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Pardon me?
My niece just had a baby.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Just now?
Just now.
Do we have anything else other than approval of the, what are noted as the January 18th minutes, but they're actually the March 14th, 2012 minutes?
Oh, you know what? We can't do it then. So there will be
It was
no.
published that way?
Yep.
Okay, then
Yeah,
we will do
so-
that next time.
I actually wanted to make a comment that I really prefer this format to the verbatim minutes,
Okay,
so.
sure.
Okay, anything else?
Two things. Last night, as I said, concept plans were presented for Westfield, the Hawthorne Mall property. So we will be moving forward in the technical review with them, and you all will see them, I would imagine, in about 60 days, maybe 90 days, to go through the entitlement process. We have to sort that out a little bit because originally when New Century Town was put in place, it was a regional PUD, but we've noticed that there are a number of holes in that. So we're going to try to figure out how we're going to work through the approval process. One way or another, it's going to be a public hearing for a special use permit for the theater, building modifications, and a whole bunch of signage. So, and in a second, as Mr. Ballou said, last night, the developers presented their concept plan, or revised concept plans for the former Kelly's campsite. They're proposing to put 304 market rate apartments on that property. The densities are about 10 units per acre. High-end, high-quality development. The board asked them to put together a comprehensive traffic study and traffic analysis, have a review done by the staff. We use Civil Tech, so we'll be using Civil Tech to do the review, and then return back to them before the board for future direction for that project. So that's where that sits at this point. The other item, as you can see, Dominic's has gone dark. They closed about 2 weeks ago. I spoke to Inland Real Estate today, and they are moving rapidly to fill that space. So I would expect that we'll know something probably within the next 60 days. It's a use that everybody knows quite well, and will fortify our position in one specific type of use. So it will take the entire store, and I think will be a good complementary use for that location. That's what I got at this point, so.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, then we have a motion to adjourn. We need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that one? Okay. No, we
Thank you.
don't. We're adjourned. Thank you.